Hi, I'm Chad with Move for Guitar. This lesson is from our series Music Theory for Guitar. In this lesson, we're going to do a comparison of all the major modes from the major scale. First off, if you like the diagrams for everything in this series, including the diagrams for this lesson, you can download our free e-guide, Music Theory for Guitar. And this e-guide will be something that you can study and use as a reference for years to come. And like I said, it's free, so there's no reason not to just go download it. This is part 5.11 from our series Music Theory for Guitar. If you'd like to go back and start at the beginning, you can click the link on the screen. So now that we've gone over all the modes individually in depth, in these next lessons we're going to compare the major modes to each other and the minor modes to each other. And in this lesson we're going to start with the major modes. And this is a little bit of a review if you've gone through all these lessons, but it's really important to make sure that you understand this because it's a big part of understanding modes is how they relate to each other. And it's important to understand how all the major modes relate to each other, or how they're different from each other, and how the minor modes are different from each other. So hopefully you know by now that the major scale has three major modes. You have the first mode, which is Ionian, which is the exact same as the major scale, the fourth mode, which is Lydian, and the fifth mode, which is Mixolydian. So each one of those builds a major triad. And hopefully you remember from when we built triads that the 1 chord were major, the 4 chord were major, the 5 chord were major. So anytime you have a major triad, you have a major mode. So the Ionian mode is the major scale, but it's also the Ionian mode, the first mode of the major scale. And as you should know by now, it has no accidentals. So it's root 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's no flats or sharps in any of these intervals. And all the flats or sharps that we get from the other modes are based on the major mode. So that's why when a mode has a flat or a sharp, that's where it's coming from. It's based off the major scale because the major scale has no flats or sharps. And that, again, like I've said before, doesn't have to do with the actual notes. So for example, the key of A is A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, and back to A. Those sharps have to do with the actual letter names. We're not talking about sharps or flats when we're talking about letter names or where they land on the fretboard. We're talking about sharps and flats in the intervals. So no matter where we put these intervals stay the same if we're talking about the major scale. For example, if we're in the key of C, it would be C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and back to C. There's no sharps or flats in the key of C, but right now we're in the key of G. It's G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and back to G. Well, that F sharp has nothing to do with the sharps or flats in the actual intervals. These intervals stay the same no matter where you put them, where you start your root note. It's just the letter name changes or the key changes. So that's the Ionian mode, no sharps and flats, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The fourth mode, which is your next major scale mode, because this is your first mode, the next one is the fourth mode. That's Lydian, and it has 1 sharp. So the only difference between Lydian and Ionian is that you've sharped the 4. Ionian has a natural 4, Lydian has a sharp 4. And it's the only mode with a sharp 4. And then the next major scale mode is the fifth mode, and that's Mixolydian. And the only difference between Mixolydian and Ionian is that Ionian has a major 7th, Mixolydian has a minor 7th or a flat 7. So the major scale modes are very close to the Ionian modes. So the Lydian and the Mixolydian are very close to the Ionian. They each are only 1 interval difference. The Lydian has a sharp 4 instead of a natural 4, and Mixolydian has a flat 7 instead of a natural 7. And again, Ionian is the major scale. It's the basis for all Western music. It's a sound that's most recognizable to us because we've heard it our whole lives. It's in so much music comes out of it in Western music. It's the do, re, mi, and you're always going to recognize it when you start hearing that scale played. You can hear what's going to happen next because we're so familiar with it. Lydian is different. That sharp 4 sounds different. You have to get used to that sound if you're not used to it. But with that sharp 4, it's actually a brighter mode. It's actually the brightest mode. It's brighter than the Ionian mode. And the distance from the 3 to the 4 is more consonant. So this sharp 4 sounds a lot better over this natural 3, which in a major triad is root 3, 5. So this sharp 4 is not an avoid note like the natural 4 is with the Ionians. So the Lydian mode has no avoid notes. And once you get used to the sound, it's a very pleasing sound, and it's nice to be able to use the sharp 4 without it being so dissonant compared to the natural 3, to the major third. And Ionian and Lydian, of course, they have the major triad, but they both are major sevenths as well. They have the root 3, 5, major 7, or root, major third, perfect fifth, major seventh. So they both create major 7 chords. The Mixolydian is different because it has that flat 7. It creates a dominant chord, because anytime you have a root 3, 5, which is your major triad, and the flat 7, that creates a dominant type of chord. And if it's just those intervals, it's a dominant 7. And because of this flat 7, the Mixolydian mode is a very bluesy major sound. You have this major triad, but you have this darker bluesy note, the flat 7. So it's very common in blues type music or funk music or jazz. So again, the best thing to do is take a major triad. You can start in the key of G or whatever jam track you can find or have or loop. And if you're in the key of G, just take a G major chord, play G Ionian over it until you really get the sound down, then play G Lydian over it until you really have the sound down, and then play G Mixolydian over it, and really listen to the difference between all the modes and the different colors they create. Because even though they're all major, and they can all be played to solo over a major chord, when you're talking about static harmony, which we'll talk about in upcoming lessons, they each have a very unique sound that is different from each other. And it's important to be able to recognize that and know on the spot which one you want to use in different situations, because a lot of times you're going to have a choice. And then with the major 7 chord, you have the option of Ionian or Lydian if it's just a static major 7 chord, because they both create major 7 chords. But with Mixolydian, this only works over the dominant 7 chord. But we'll talk more about that in upcoming lessons. And so if we look at these on this chart just by themselves, you have Ionian with no accidentals, no flats or sharps. That gives you major triad, major 7th, which you should know by now. The avoid, of course, is the 4th. The root is apparent major scale, no accidentals, and it's a happy major sound. We all recognize it. It's so common in Western music. Lydian, you just sharp the 4 to get to that, but it's still a major triad, major 7th chord, but no avoid notes because that sharp 4 is not as dissonant. Apparent major scale is the 5th out of these intervals, and of course the unique character is that it has a sharp 4 and it's a bright major sound because of that sharp 4. And then Mixolydian, of course you get the major triad because all the major modes create major triads, but it's the only one you get a dominant 7th chord because of that flat 7. The avoid note is a natural 4 again, just like the Ionian mode, because they both clash with that major 3rd interval. It's a very dissonant interval because it's only half a step away. Apparent major scale is the 4th note, the 4th interval in the scale, and the unique character, of course, is the major chord, the major triad with the flat 7, which creates a bluesy major sound. So that's a comparison of all the major modes. It's really important to be able to hear and understand the differences because, like I said, in a lot of soloing situations, you're going to have a choice between different modes, and it's important to be able to recognize the sound or recognize which one you want to use. But we'll talk more about that in upcoming lessons. Go ahead and move on to the next lesson where we're going to compare all the minor modes. And be sure to download the e-guide. All the diagrams are in there. And be sure to subscribe because we add at least one new lesson every day.